Hey, welcome everybody. Glad to have you. We are ready to start with our August 2nd edition of DACAT. So myself, Jim McDermott, is on. Paige Thompson-Russ is on vacation, so we'll not be hearing from Paige. But
Maybe
we
know
have
what
a
I'm
special
doing.
guest. We've got a special guest, Dr. Bethany Grabow is going to be with us, who is the DEKALB North American Germplasm Deployment Lead. So we'll be hearing from her in a bit. So welcome, Bethany. Glad to have you.
Hi, everyone.
All right, good to see your smiling face. So glad to have everybody on. As usual, we will always take questions either in the chat or come off mute, but we will start with a trivia question, fairly straightforward. And, always want to give some recognition to the people that have won in the past. So I'm going to name names. So the Hall of Fame so far this year is Nick Meyer, Alec Holmgard, Tanner Day, David Simonson, Casey Jones, and Paul Brettlinger. Those have been our 6 winners so far, and we're going to have a new winner today. Fairly straightforward question, but it is 2-part. So soybean aphids is one of the things that we are dealing with yet for the next few weeks. But my question is, what is the threshold on soybean aphids that's generally accepted in Iowa, not South Dakota, but Iowa? And also, what is the stage that we want to continue to scout until for soybean aphids? So 2-part question, looking for a number as far as threshold on soybean aphids, and then growth stage in soybeans that we want to continue to scout for. So the first person to correctly put that in the chat or come off mute and give an answer, there'll be a huge prize. So we've got one answer out there, and it is close. Wow. Eric, I'm going to say that that's not quite correct. It's so dang close, though. I'll give you another shot, but it's technically on the growth stage. It's not R5. I'm just going to say that. It pains me, though, not to give it to you because that is so close. On the aphid numbers, that's close enough. Well, I see R6 is the second one. Eric, just because you're working so hard, I'm going to give it to you because I'll average those two together. Technically, R5.5 is the time that we are aphid free. So there we go. Average them together and you got it. So, 240, 250, take your pick, is the generally accepted aphid threshold up to R5.5. Had to clarify by the state, but because South Dakota, usually it's maybe you see an aphid and you spray an aphid. So threshold is a little different depending on state. And of course, can vary depending on what type of stress levels we're dealing with. But you got it, Eric. You are joining the Hall of Fame on the trivia answers. Well done. All right. Well, we're going to jump right in, talk a little bit about current conditions. And always want to start with GDUs. So GDU, as we've been all season, we're chugging along ahead of schedule. Falling back a little bit as of 2 weeks ago. We were generally running 100 to 150 ahead. Now, depending on location, we're anywhere from 20 ahead to roughly 100. So still ahead, but not quite as dramatic. Of course, it's starting to get interesting. This time of the year, we can actually get close to our projections or get a little more accurate on projections. And for those of you that by chance maybe were paying attention 2 weeks ago, the 108-day hybrid for black layer projection at Storm Lake 2 weeks ago was the 17th. Well, now it's the 16th. So apparently the heat last week is enough to gain us 1 day in black layer. But regardless, we're looking at, that's for a 26th of April planting date. So For a lot of our planting dates, we're looking at mid-September right now for black layer, so relatively early, I would say. Well, how about moisture? I think we all know we can use more. This time of the year, we can't turn any rain away. So as far as our departure from normal, most areas in northwest Iowa still running behind. Other than that pocket, really a very small pocket kind of by Lorenz, northwest Pocahontas County, southeast Palo Alto County, that got a huge rain on the 13th of May. Most areas are sitting between 1.5, 4 inches behind the long-term average, and this would be from April 15th up until yesterday. And then, of course, where we're at for total precip inches. So again, we've got that one little area, and of course, a lot of that came in 1 or 2 days, so it kind of skews the results. But we're sitting here with the range about from 9 inches to 13.5 inches on most of the areas. We're going to talk about it a little bit coming up here, but for a corn crop, we need 20 to 28 inches roughly. And we didn't have a lot of subsoil heading in, so 2 to 5 inches, 2 to 6 inches generally was what we had in northwest Iowa. So of course you add that with some of these areas that have gotten, let's just say 10 inches. We're well short of what we're going to need to finish over these last 6 weeks. So hopefully we get some from the air. Otherwise, we're going to be set up for cannibalization. So we do kind of have to prepare ourselves for that to be a reality. Of course, soybeans have also shown stress, and probably generated more calls, especially early in this week. The heat we had last week obviously put stress on corn and soybeans, but we expect to see that on corn. But soybeans, boy, we are heading into the critical time. And I think we all know that beans are made in August. This chart on water use for soybeans, of course, shows it peaking at R3. And we're generally R3 moving into R4 right now. So we're getting a little bit over the hump on water use, but it's still the critical stage for yield development. And this chart, and then I'll have one on the corn, I think are always interesting to look at full pod or R4 when we've got 3/4 inch pod at one of the top 4 nodes. We have only attained about 20% of our yield. So we've got a long ways to go. We need those additional 9 to 9.5 inches of rain to finish us out. But when you look at a chart like this, it does scare you thinking of what's at stake yet on the soybean side. We have potential to lose a lot of yield. Now, potential is good as far as number of nodes and node count and overall soybean crop in general. With when we canopied, I think it has been a positive. But we've seen a lot of beans go backwards in the last week, and especially the last 4 or 5 days. So a lot of those beans have been flipping their leaves over, trying to conserve water, and even dropping lower leaves. So the stress is starting to take its toll. And on the corn side, of course, we've got a lot more yield that we've already put into that ear. We've got a lot of corn getting into the R4 stage or dough stage. So giving us about a month or 5 weeks until we get to black layer. Of course, probably more likely 6 weeks, considering when most of our planting dates were. And same type of thing. We still need a good 8 inches of moisture to be able to finish that crop out. And we've got 50% of that yield yet to be attained. So long ways to go on corn. It's just with corn, you've got a little bit more ability to take that moisture or take some of those sugars from the stalk, from the rest of the plant into the ear. So, you can get by if you've got a plant that's, not been under a tremendous amount of stress up to this point. But of course, like I mentioned before, that's where the cannibalization can lead into. So that's certainly going to be a concern if we're not getting more moisture going forward. So that's just a little bit of where we're at. at this point, I did want to bring in Dr. Bethany Grabow, talk a little bit on what her role is. Got some of her background. Very very good person to work with. Bethany's been in her role. What has it been? Just over a year now. Oop. Not able to hear you, Bethany.
Try that again. About a year and a half now.
There you go. Year and a half. Okay. But yeah, so relatively new, but you can talk a little bit about your background, of course, and then the role, and then, just some of the things that you've been seeing. I know you've been walking a heck of a lot of plots this summer.
Yeah, so I kind of have a different background. I'm originally from Gilbert, Arizona, which was a small farming community back a while ago. It was the fastest growing city in the U.S. for about 10 years straight, so it looks very different today. Very few fields are left, mostly shopping centers. But I ended up deciding to kind of move. I wanted to move to where there was rain, to be totally honest. And I thought Kansas State has so much rain in retrospect. It's really funny now. But I ended up doing my master's in agronomy, kind of focused on rangeland management and also remote sensing, using that to detect invasive weeds for management purposes. I then went into my PhD at Kansas State and worked with Eric DeWolf, who is the weed extension pathologist for the state at the time. And, I really focused on developing models for predicting diseases and also a lot of extension work. So I actually ran the extension program for about a year at the end of my PhD before I was brought into Monsanto at the time. So I spent about 5 years over in the North America plant health team. I developed the first tar spot models within the company to try to predict, where we would need to expand and focus on our portfolio in terms of RMs and potential areas where we would see this expand back in 2018 or so. So I've always been interested in kind of the product management side of industry, and I had an opportunity to move over to the North America germplasm deployment team. It was about 3 years ago, and I moved over into our regional brands part of our business, and then about a year and a half ago, I took over for DEKALB. So what my role is I think I have the coolest role in the company. I don't know, a lot of people say that, but what I get to do is I get to choose the products that we deploy to our brand. So I'm kind of the lead person that goes into our deployment process and looks at all the data and decides what we need to bring in. But I don't fully do that on my own, obviously. That's a lot. So I cover the entire United States. So I rely very heavily on the technical agronomists across DEKALB. So Jim and Paige are really, excellent resources, and they give me the market needs and the agronomics and all of the characteristics that they need for their of what they see needed for the portfolio for their territory. And then that helps me kind of aggregate all those market needs and then choose products with the help of field advancement specialists and our breeding group, product development scientists, to kind of choose the products that will fill those market needs based off of the partnership with the technical agronomists. So I do cover the entire United States, which is a lot. So I start down in Texas at kind of the end of June, walking plots, and we'll move north as our breeding plots advance in growth stage, so I can see those characteristics and those differences on each region. And then I just slowly move north up until we get to our deployment season, which is in November. So it's really fun kind of seeing the corn at all these different areas and trying to understand what are the characteristics and really seeing where products fit. And it's really exciting to know that there's a product that's going to fill this market need. And I see that consistency across multiple locations. Gets me pretty excited when I see that type of stability in a product.
And I would just add, Bethany does a great job of asking for that feedback and that information. And we try to see where the holes are in our lineup and try to fill those. And, we also talk to dealers and sometimes it's obvious, where we need to fill a gap, but yeah, that's all part of the process is what really are the market needs that we have out there for our customers. And sometimes that comes into traits too, trying to predict what trait is going to be the key trait going forward.
Yeah, so we have a very active trait pipeline, as everybody knows, just Bayer, Monsanto. That's really what we've done really excellent, is that we have all these different trait options. So we kind of have the Smart Stacks, and then we brought out the Smart Stacks Pro for that high corn rootworm acre, moderate to high pressure, right? And then we now have the new VT4 Pro, which is for kind of the low to moderate acre. It has the RNA technology, but it also has Tricepta for the above ground portion of the corn plant. So with that, you kind of have these two different segments of where you can place those traits, and it's really neat to see where those could fit in into the portfolio and how it can help our customers manage corn rootworm and deal with that. Of course, I'm going to state it right out. Rotation is very important. And even with extended diapods, rotation is still, if you have a serious corn rootworm problem, that's probably your best bet of what to do. But then the Smart Stacks Pro is an excellent option for, it's for that acre as well. In our above ground kind of portfolio, we do fit with our double pros, and we are starting to transition to more of our Triceptas. We just get a nice control with the Tricepta for multiple pests. So we are starting to see a transition toward that in the above ground part of our portfolio. And then as you guys know, short corn is kind of our new major system coming out that we're really excited about. And it has a great fit across Iowa, where you guys get some of those straight line winds and issues like that for standability.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, and maybe a question, and might be a little early because you don't really know exactly what's going to be launched for this fall here, late fall. But just looking at the trait mix, VT4 Pro looks like it's going to become a bigger part of the portfolio. Smart Stacks Pro, of course, and that has looked excellent in the field. But do you see many straight Smart Stacks or VT Double Pro products being released going forward, Bethany?
So we'll start to see a real decline in just straight Smart Stacks, as we move to kind of that VT4 Pro and Smart Stacks Pro. So we will start to see those decline. There's not as many in the kind of our pre-commercial material that we're moving forward. There's still a few. So this last year we did take the 11010 product into the portfolio, and that was kind of the only Smart Stacks that really came forward last year. But there's definitely fewer. We will start to see that transition to the Smart Stacks Pro and VT4 Pro quickly. In terms of Double Pro and Tricepta, I think that's kind of a slower transition. There's still definitely a mix of them between both trait packages as we start to ramp up toward just Tricepta. So you'll see more of those.
Oh, good. Yeah. And it's been exciting to see these launch classes, especially the last 2 years. I would certainly say there's been a step change with some of these, the 101, 33, and 35, 105, 33, 35, and then this year's class, there's some tremendous looking products, including the one right behind me here that I've got a picture of. That one has really looked good so far in the field. It's a bigger, taller plant, I've noticed.
Yeah, the 101, 33, 35, and that 105, 33, 35, I call those keystone products in our portfolio. So we knew we needed like a 100, 105. We've been trying to find that fit. I think the 105 has that really nice tar spot tolerance that we're seeing come through it, and it's just an all-around great product. And both of those, and I've labeled them keystone products within the portfolio because I really feel like they're going to grasp us there, and we're seeing fantastic performance. And I really love the 10864. I remember every single note that I took on it last year, and it was beautiful in multiple locations. It is a little taller, but it still stood really well, and it has tons of yield behind it. It's just phenomenal. I really love that product. I'm excited for it. And it came out of the ground pretty fast, right? Did you have that same experience with it?
Yes, yes, it was one of our faster emergers, not just of new products, but even the current commercial products. So yeah, very exciting to see that. Well, probably an
Yeah.
unfair question, but any sneak preview on what might be launched in the DEKALB brand, or any hints that way, Bethany?
We're not quite there yet. Down in the South, where I'm always looking for corn when I'm out walking. No one wants to walk green corn. You can't see differences yet. You can see height and you can see some ear placement, but if you wait for it to kind of start drying down, you get nice stay green. You can find, late roots, early roots, any sort of stock lodging. But as we go out, it's really about trying to see. There's obviously products that from our previous pre-commercial class that they were in that really stood out. But as you get to this next class prior to deployment, it's on more acres, more locations, and really gives you an idea of that stability and consistency. So hopefully in a few more weeks, we'll start to see stuff start to dry down, and we'll be able to move north, hopefully by, mid-September. Based on your GDUs, it's looking like mid-September is going to be a good time to get out there and start looking at our plots. So we'll see what comes out. We do wait. The interesting thing about DEKALB is that, we've always, as we deploy products and we have our new traits, we're really focused on what is the best product, so the best male-female combination with that trait to bring forward. So when I'm out selecting, it's not about bringing forward a pair where you have a double pro and a stack. It's about choosing the best product for our brand and bringing that forward. So kind of waiting to see how things shake out with more data this year.
Well, it gives us a lot of confidence knowing, that you're out there walking fields. I know you've been in the Delta the last few days, and, we're testing these products all over. I mean, that helps because we're going to get a chance, even if we don't have a drought in one area, or good chance we're going to see it under stress somewhere. So it gives us a lot of confidence in our launch class and what it can do, no matter what type of condition.
And in Iowa, we have two great product development scientists, which is they're renamed, breeders. And you have two sitting in Iowa that are fantastic, that have really, really grown in the last few years in their role. And so I think that Iowa is really well positioned for getting good looks at products and having a lot of people out there. So we have an FAS that's out there, and then we also have the two breeders. And then you have all of our other teams kind of walking those plots, taking a look at things and getting different perspectives, so that when we go into deployments, we have a diverse viewpoint of what we saw on top of our visual observations of what we saw on top of the very extreme number and level of data that we also collected all these locations. So we have, a lot of data coming in, and then we also have what our eyes saw and diverse perspectives from that way. It's really a great combination.
Absolutely. Well, I guess Bethany, don't want to keep you, but any last words that you want to add before we let you go?
Yeah, just if you have a market need and something's missing, talk to your technical agronomist. We have a direct line to each other. We all text and stay in contact regularly, and that partnership is really what helps us make the best decision for the brand and for our customers. So thanks, everyone.
Well, yeah. Well, thanks for being on. Appreciate you taking the time to be with our dealer group this morning. All right. Well, we'll finish up here with just a few things on current topics as well. And one of them is diseases. Overall, I would say we're still in the pattern of fairly low disease year for Northwest Iowa. Personally, I've seen Gossa's wilt as far as a disease be the most widespread disease, and most of it still is in the western half of Northwest Iowa. But again, between some of the physical damage, the hail, winds, especially on the edges of fields, that's been some of the easier places to find Gossa's wilt. But it's certainly out there. I haven't seen it spread very wide yet or take off. Some of these fields, it just is showing up on the upper part of the canopy. which generally is telling me that those are inoculum that has blown in versus the lower part of the canopy where it's overwintered. So we probably get a combination of both, but most of what I've seen has been in the upper part of the canopy. Otherwise, generally the diseases have been low. A little bit of northern corn leaf blight. Tar spot, of course, is one that gets talked about a lot. And I don't know, Bethany, maybe you have been involved in some of the work behind this, but this is an internal tool, this tar spot app that we do really use and gives us these projections as far as percent risk. This one would be really for the next 14 days. So, for Northwest Iowa, you can see we're kind of in that 16 to 25%, or basically a fourth of a chance of it showing up. And then also I did pull for the overall risk. So this would be just the risk total for the rest of the year. And that pushes it into a higher category. For a lot of the area, we're talking roughly a 50% chance. Get up here into the extreme northwest part of Iowa, then we're more into that 30 to 45% or 33 to 45% technically as far as a percent chance of having tar spot. So it takes into account the forecast coming up. So, we know that is variable, but like any model, it's only as good as what that weather projection is. But it gives us a nice tool. And so far, I guess from what most people are saying and seeing in the fields, tar spot is very, very low levels, at least in Northwest Iowa. And then as far as officially, and I'm sure there's more counties than what's on this map, but as of yesterday in the official corn IPM map, this is locations where tar spot has been actually spotted with the yellow ones, Webster County, Shelby County to the west central side. So still mainly central Iowa and eastern Iowa is where it's actually been spotted. And again, this is only official. I'm sure there's other places where it has been spotted, but just not reported. But still at fairly low levels.
Jim, I just want to point out, Iowa has the best extension pathologists. So Darren and Allison. I mean, it's just very apparent that they're active and out there taking notes and getting those observations put in, because Illinois doesn't have much of an extension program anymore, and you can kind of see that there. You guys have an excellent extension group there that's doing a great job of keeping an eye out. But yeah, always remember, it's the timing of when that pathogen comes on. If it's later, it's past R1, you might not need to make a fungicide spray depending on the risk that's coming out there. But always make sure to scout, make sure it's actually tar spot and not fly, poop. And make sure you know what you have before you make that spray decision.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's, of course, most of the corn fungicide is pretty well wrapped up by now, but a lot of acres did get covered. And, hopefully even just from the plant health benefits, we'll see fungicides pay this year. Just to finish up, a few things on insects. I'd mentioned this before, but on the soybean aphids, that's one of the few things we have to scout for. I mean, we've got soybean aphids, we've got grasshoppers. Of course, we do have soybean gall midge. Talk about that here in a second. Otherwise, on the corn side, there are aphids present. Not real good established thresholds there. Really, when we get into the hard dent or R5, we can pretty well be home free with corn aphids. But so we've got several weeks to go, or at least 2 weeks to go yet before we're there. On the soybean defoliator side, with the grasshoppers and even Japanese beetle or bean leaf beetle on the pods, at this point, when they're in the reproductive stage, 20% threshold as far as leaf feeding. And then on the pod feeding, 5%. If we've got pod scraping by grasshoppers or bean leaf beetles or whatever other type of insect, 5% is that threshold. And we're getting to the point where we do need to watch the harvest interval on some of these products. And of course, soybean gall midge is the one that's really been showing up, especially as we get into Plymouth and Sioux County, some areas to the west. Not much to do, which makes it very difficult, very hard to manage this time of the year. but at least we do need to scout and verify, and so we can deal with that coming up for next year, and be aware that that we've got the issue in the area. And of course, to finish up, corn rootworm. Rootworm is one that has been heavy this year. This I had put in the newsletter, but we continue to see this where the SmartStax Pro has looked very good in these heavy pressure situations, and Chrome continues to struggle when we're dealing with that lower protein expression. Overall on rootworm, we're dealing with high pressure, both on corn as well as corn on beans. We continue to see the extended diapause and the northern corn rootworm beetles on the rotated acre. Bethany said it very well, but obviously the rotation on the heavy fields is first way to go. But been very happy with what SmartStax Pro is doing out in the field. And the nice thing is, we had mentioned a few of these products earlier, but we've got a nice range of RMs on SmartStax Pro. We've got some genetics that are very proven and good availability. Although with that being said, from what people are telling me, both growers as well as you dealers, I think SmartStax Pro is going to be in high demand. So keep that in mind. Availability is good now, but I have a feeling there's a lot of people, if they're going corn on corn, are going to be looking hard at SmartStax Pro. So I have a feeling that supply is going to be getting crunched this season. Well, hey, we're sitting at 8:32, so I am going to wrap things up, but would certainly open it up for any questions in the chat, or if anybody wants to come off mute. We do have the QR code up, so if you have your CCA, go ahead and snap that, and you can get your half credit in crop management. Give it a few seconds here to see if there's any questions or any comments from the group. Kind of learned over the weeks that questions usually just don't come flowing in hot and heavy. Still have to try. Yeah.
Jim, do you have Bethany still there? When are we going to have short corn released, especially short corn with Pro in it?
So in the pipeline for this latest deployment class, there is a SmartStax Pro in there. We will have to confirm performance before we bring it forward, but there is the next year or two would be my guess of when it would come out. So this first year it will come out as Preceon in that state, and then eventually it'll go into a DEKALB exclusive bag once we have more options. But it really depends on performance of whether we can bring that forward. So we're still waiting on all of that data.
Yeah, good question, Rich. And in the plot material that we did get, I believe there was one SmartStax of the short statured. So starting to get a little bit more of a mix of traits, more than just the VT Double Pros that we've had out so far in the short statured corn. Well, hey, I know everyone's busy, so I think at this point we'll go ahead and shut things down. But again, I'd like to thank Bethany. Really appreciate you being on. Appreciate your expertise. And thank you, everyone, for being on. And make sure you have a good day and keep yourself safe. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim.